Hi everyone, and welcome back to the Shamrock Quilt Studio. It's always an exciting day when we introduce a new project, and that's what we're going to do today. If you like machine piecing, quick projects, and the color pink, you're in for a treat. Grab a drink and we'll be right back. And welcome back to the Shamrock Quilt Studio. I've got a new project today and I'm really excited about it. It's got some bright, happy colors, and it's something that's going to stretch my quilting knowledge and my skills, and I'm really excited about it. Some time ago I saw a pineapple quilt in a magazine or Pinterest or something, and I really liked the way it looked. I had never really thought about a pineapple quilt before. I didn't know how they were put together. It just really was something that never struck me. But when I saw this design in pink and green, it was really something that struck my fancy, so to speak. And when I ran across a small project that was great for a beginner with pineapple quilt squares, I thought it would be perfect for us here at the Shamrock Quilt Studio to increase our skills, learn something new, and have a small project that we can tackle. You know, it's fall here when I'm recording this, and everything is orange and fall colors, browns and tans, and this is something just a little bit different, and we'll be able to move through it really quickly. First, let me show you the inspiration for this project, and it comes out of a book called Pineapple Play. The author of this book is Jean Ann Wright, and I received this book as a gift from my husband, and he ordered it off of Amazon. So I'm sure we can find the link and put it down below. And it is a collection, it says, of 14 projects. It uses the Creative Grids pineapple trim tool, and it's available in multiple sizes, and that's what we're going to use. We'll talk about this in just a second. So this has a multitude of different projects in different sizes. It has different fabrics, different color schemes. So if pink and green, and I keep trying to say pink and purple, let me get off that. If pink and green is what you like, you'll love our colors. If you don't like pink and green, pick some more colors and go with it. What I've chosen to tackle is something in this book called Beach Treasures. And in the book, they show this quilt in orange and gray with a dark teal accent. However, I wanted to do it in pink and green. So I'm going to swap out the orange for the pink and swap out the green for the gray, and I'm going to use a bright, deep pink for the teal. So I'll show you my fabrics in just a second. This is a small table runner quilt top, and it also has some little borders on the edges. I don't think I'm going to add those in mine because I want it to, I don't think it necessarily needs that, but I want it to be as quick as possible to run through this. We may change our minds on that as we get into this, but initially I'm going to say I'm not going to do that. Now, we're going to talk about the tools that you need. Well, this particular project uses 10-inch pineapple blocks. You can do this without the tool, without the template, but I think it will be quicker and more efficient if you get it. And if you like the look of pineapple quilts, you'll be able to use this for a lot of pineapple quilts. And it also could be used for other things as well. So initially I had bought the smaller tool. This one does 4, 5, and 6 inch pineapple blocks. And I thought that I was going to do this. I also wasn't really sure, to be honest with you, about how many pineapple block quilts I'd be making. So this was cheaper. But what I've discovered after really studying the book, which I didn't do before, was that this made really tiny little blocks, but it's the same amount of pieces. So you're going to be doing more work. So for a beginner, I think you're better off with using a bigger block. And this is the 10-inch tool. It's really nice. I would say let me say this, I think it's a little pricey. I'll be honest with you. Even ordering this from Amazon, it was right about $30, which is outside of my I'm really cheap range, but I was very interested in starting this project. So if you're willing to put that into it, it would be great. Like I said, if you don't want to do that, you can work around it. People have been making pineapple blocks before this was invented, so you could too. What is really nice about this, I wanted to talk to you about it, is it's all set up. It's got all the markings. It's got the guide squares. It has the seam allowances built in, and it's got your trimming line. It also has these little spots or dots on it where the acrylic on the back has a textured surface. So when you put it down on your fabric, it doesn't slide around. I kind of wish they'd make all of the rulers like that. And I want to guess that it's a very specialized template, so that makes the price a little higher. But I think too that textured probably is why it's a little more expensive. So you don't have to, but I would recommend that you have the trimming tool. And it does come with instructions. Now, it also on this instruction sheet, excuse me, has a QR code that will take you directly to a video where this is demonstrated. And I watched that video and I found it to be really helpful. What was also helpful for me was to make a square and kind of fumble through it. I used the instructions in the book, the instructions on the tool, and the markings on the tool itself to come together with how the tool was used in conjunction with sewing the strips on to create this. This is a very structured piece that we're going to be making. It has, I think it has 2 different kinds of blocks. It has the block where half is pink and half is green, and then it has the blocks on the outside where 3 sides are the green color and 1 side is the pink color. That's correct. Okay, just making sure in my mind that that's right. So what it calls for, we're going to go over this just really quickly because it doesn't really require a whole lot of fabric. It requires 5/8 of a yard of gray, and it's calling for batik. I did not go with batik. I don't care for batiks. They are thicker, I find, than regular fabrics, and the selection of colors sometimes is more limited, and you also get more bold designs, I find, and I prefer the little designs on my fabric to be more delicate and more subdued. So I'm going with regular fabric for all this. So 5/8 of a yard of gray fabric, and we are substituting a green fabric for the gray. This is kind of almost a lime green, something a little vibrant. It's got a little white dot in it. So I'm going to show you that. Okay, 5/8 of a yard. Then it calls for 1/2 yard of orange batik. And for that, I'm using a pink with a little darker pink swirl in it, which I think the two of these go together very nicely. They're very contrasty, but they also coordinate well. So it kind of reminds me of candy for some reason. And then it calls for 1/2 yard of turquoise, and that's going to be the color that's used in the little blocks and also the edge of the fabric for the border on the ends. Now, because I don't think I'm going to put the border on the edge, I went with a scrap of fabric I have for that, and it's a very deep pink. And I think, check real quick, I've got about 1 foot of that, so about 1/3 of a yard, maybe a little bit more in what I had because I've already cut the little blocks out of it. So now those are the 3 colors, with that darker pink being not used as much. Okay? And then finally it calls for 1 yard of white fabric. And for this, I just went to my stash and pulled out a piece of fabric that I don't know how long I've had this, but it's kind of weird if you ask me, because it is 36 inches wide fabric. So I don't know if I've had this a really long time or it was some kind of specialty fabric. I'm not sure. It feels like all cotton. It looks like all cotton. It's very soft. It does not feel like it's a blend at all. But I've got plenty of that, so that's what I'm going to use. And it looks good with these 3 fabrics. Everything's all cotton. It also calls for 1.5 yards of backing. I do have a fabric that I'm tentatively thinking of for the backing, and we'll discuss that later when we get to that point in the quilt. And then, of course, if you choose to put batting in it, you would need that as well. Couple of things I want to talk to you about, and then I'm going to show you an example of what one of these blocks looks like, because it's pretty. I like it. There are a lot of pieces. It can be very confusing when you first start cutting and putting these together. And usually I'll tell you, put one together to see if you like the way it's happening, what's involved in doing it, so you know if you want to move forward. With this project, I still recommend that, but just keep in mind that when you're constructing these, this is going to be a situation where it's really, really going to help you to be able to do 3 or 4 that are exactly the same at the same time, because you'll be doing the same thing and you'll be thinking less about, is this right, is this not right, when you're doing them all. But doing that one before is really going to help you understand how it goes together and maybe some of the things that you need to know. And the book does have almost a step-by-step to get you started and how it goes together. And a couple of the things that were noted in the instruction is that the most critical part of the whole thing is making sure that that block that you start out with is accurately measured and cut. Beyond that, you could cut your strips at any width. They do need to be a minimum, I think it's 1 3/4 inch, 1 3/4 inch wide. But you could cut one continuous strip. You could cut the sizes that the pattern calls for. You could use a strip that was 3 inches wide or one that was 2 inches wide. Any width, any scrap that you wanted to use, as long as it was at least 1 3/4 inches. So if you choose to do a pineapple quilt with scrap, in a scrappy design, it's a good way to use your scraps up. that being said, it's a lot of pieces of fabric and it does get a little finicky. So let me show you now one of the blocks that I've already created. And like I said before, there's two kinds of blocks, and it even shows you down here in the thing. There's that one block where one side is one color, one side would be all pink in our example, and one side would be green. And then there's a second block where most of it's going to be green and just one corner is going to be pink. This is going to be the block that's half and half. And this is what it looks like. Now, a lot of seams, a lot of trimming, granted, but it's straight stitches and it is pretty forgiving, and you're doing one piece of fabric or two pieces of fabric at a time. So it comes together really easily, and just imagine how this is going to look when we add several of them together. And this is going to be a design where the pink blocks are in the middle and the green is all the way around. Pretty, huh? This one I find to be very happy and cheerful, a little summerish maybe, feminine in the colors that we've chosen. If you chose to do this in deeper colors or a pattern that was a little more neutral or masculine, it could be used for that as well. Scrappy definitely works. There is lots of inspiration in this book that can help you come up with something depending on what your tastes are. For example, look at that one. Lots of neutrals. Kind of just the opposite of what we're going to be doing. And here's one that's very feminine, uses a lot of florals, a lot of design in it. You don't see the distinction as much in the actual pineapple blocks. Very happy, very cheerful, lots of colors. So there's a lot of different variation in how your choices of patterns and fabrics comes into play. There's also some variations in how some of these blocks go together, because this one is the one that uses a lot of small pieces to make the design. There's also some, and I think this example on the front cover shows you that there's an example of how you're making a block, and I want to say that's probably a 10-inch block as well. But the pieces of fabric are larger, so you're not using as many pieces. That may be an option of how you can use this same tool to make a pattern, make a quilt top that is still a pineapple block, but it looks completely different from this one. So there we are. And what I'm going to do next in my step, I've got this one finished. I'm going to go ahead and get some of these blocks completed, and then the next time we meet for this project, I'm going to show you how one of them comes together. There's a lot of pieces, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how they're cut and how I'm organizing them to put them together, and then quickly how one of them goes together. But just in a nutshell, what you're doing is you're going to start with that block in the middle, and you're going to add two pieces of fabric and sew them on. Finger press them out, iron them out, whatever works for you, and then sew the opposite two pieces on, iron them out, and then you're going to trim. And then you're going to add fabric, and you're going to trim. And you're going to add fabric, and you're going to trim. And it's just where you put what piece of fabric and how you use the tool to trim it that gives you this block. It's going to be a little bit of a challenge because, as I've said, I've never done this before. Aside from making this one square, I don't know anything. We will learn together what's the best way to tackle some of these, and we'll see just how quickly they come together. Since there is so much sewing and trimming and sewing and trimming. A lot of what happens on this, I'm going to show you one time, and then I'm going to do the rest of them behind the seams. So it's going to be a lot of this worked and this didn't work and examples of things, but we're not going to have too much actual sewing in production on camera. It's going to be instructional, example, and then this is what we got in this step. Here's the next step. I hope you are as excited as I am. I'm so excited I can't even talk straight to get started on this new project. And like I said, I think it's going to come together really, really quickly. So join us next week and we'll get started on the first block. Thank you. If you like our video, give us a thumbs up. Be sure to subscribe to the channel and check out our new playlist. See you next week. Bye-bye.